Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalar Spatikhatrudhim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivamupaasmahe Yasyadviradavakradhyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Tisatatham Vishwashremam Tamashraye Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Gurave Sarvalokanam, Bisaje Bhavaroginaha, Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namo Namaha Om Sahanau Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahavidyam Karavavahai Tejasvinhavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Krishnayarpanamastu Om Partaya Pratibodhitham Bhagavatha Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitham Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharate Advaita Amrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadhasadhyayinim Ambhatvam Anushandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavat Veshinim Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Krishnaya Arpanamastu Anyada Sharanam Nasti. Sai Ram, Namaskar, Vanakkam, Vandanam to all who have kindly spent their time this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on which region you are. But we are all connected with one mindset, preferably with an open mindset, so we are open to learning, right? I just want to talk about the prayer that I recited before this, so that you're clear. The first one I want to talk about is Sahana Bhavatu. What does it mean? I mean, it's a very important prayer, especially when you are preparing to teach something, or from your perspective, you're preparing to learn something. So the word Sahanau Bhavatu means, may the good divine energies bless us both as a teacher, as a learner. Then Sahanau Bhunaktu means, may he enrich us with the capacity to learn. Saha Vidyam Karavavahi means there is no impediments or intrusions or obstacles or hindrances in the process of that learning. Tejasvina Vaditamastu. That means whatever we learn, may there be brilliance and may there be clarity in it. Na Vitpi Shavahai. That means let there be no misunderstanding, misconception, or misapprehension about what has been learned. And then we say the three shantis. I mean, most of you must know that, whatever we do or whenever we engage in a prayer or something, we always say three shantis, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. These three shantis relate to the mind, the body, and the spirit. right? So the three levels of peace which you should have, right, is physical peace, and then mental peace, and then universal, sphere-based peace. So the three levels refer to Adi Devika, Adi Bhautika, and Adi Atmika. Okay, so that is the very important prayer. Sahana vavatu, sahana vunaktu, sahavityam karabhavahi, tejasvina tamastu ma vitvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. That is a preparation for you to learn, how to prepare yourself. Then the second one, which is the Dhyana mantra for the Mahabharata, is it, the Partaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatha Narayana Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharate Advaita Amrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Atsyadashatyayinim Ambadham Manushan Dadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavat. That basically means I constantly meditate on you, O great Mother Bhagavad Gita. It was you who, through Lord Krishna, Lord Narayana himself, who taught Partha, Arjuna, right? The great composition of Mahabharata, right? But in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, in the middle of the story Mahabharata, you have given the ambrosia wisdom of non-duality. This is called Advaitam. Dvaitam means duality. Advaita means moving away from duality to singularity, right? That is the divinity, and that is what we are looking at. Bhagavad Gita Bhavat Veshinim. Through Bhagavad Gita, let us transcend this samsara and go to that non-duality or that character of singularity. That is a Dhyana mantra. So every week before I commence, I will be repeating that. So let me give you some structure with regards to the delivery, as this week is just an introduction. So everybody who joins in has a clear idea of what is going to happen on a week-by-week basis. So no one is confused, in keeping with the Sahana prayer. So week 1, today is general introduction to our background to the Mahabharata. And next week will be a basic introduction to some of the key characters and some of the weapons, or astras they have used, right? So I'll be talking to you next week about the weapons. So weapons can be ayudas, ayudam, or sastras, okay, another type of ayudam, or astras. It's a completely different set of weapons. In the modern days and modern times, you hear the United Nations, you hear all these big powerful countries talk about weapons of mass destruction. That is what they have discovered now. But I will tell you, back in Ramayana, back in Mahabharata, we already used it, right? This is the nuclear energy, right? This is astras are based with nuclear power. Anyway, we will venture there when we get to it. That is week 1 and 2. Week 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I will be examining specific characters like Karna, Arjuna, Yudhishthira, Shakuni, Bhishma, 11 characters or 9 characters, okay? And in the battle, what sort of weapons they were using, what is the significance of the battle, during the battle, but today, in 2025, how can we relate to what happened in the Mahabharata, what happened in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? And that is the main aim of this, right? So it's not me just sitting here telling you the story, oh, this happened in Mahabharata, this happened, this happened, this happened. There are lots of storytellers out there you can watch on the YouTube. Mine is, what does it teach us today? Today. How do we apply these teachings in our life today, so we can transcend from one level of ignorance to one level of knowledge, from one level of knowledge to one level of wisdom, from one level of wisdom to complete freedom or liberation. Yet tattvam tatho mukti, like that, where you have captured the essence of concepts, it will lead to mukti or liberation. So each week, what will we be doing? Each week, we will look at, perhaps, from week 3, we look at a character. So let's say, for example, I'm looking at the Kauravas. So I'll give you a background about the Kauravas. From the Kauravas, the key characters like Duryodhana, and then his second in command, Dushasana. So a few characters like that. What do they represent? Represent means today. Like when I'm talking to you about Duryodhana, I would say Duryodhana represents two things: greed and jealousy, envy. So I will say, how do we deal with that today? Because today we live in a world, either we are jealous of someone or someone else is jealous of us. So you see, we are taking the teachings that happened back in Mahabharata to today's time, today's day, today's time. Okay, so what we can learn from that? How do we inculcate those teachings or those principles or those practices, right? And how do we move from one place to the next place? I am talking about personal transformation. So you must have an open mind, just as I said earlier, not only to get the information that I'm giving, but to use that information towards transformation of yourself. So the aim of these sessions, and my aim certainly with the guise and blessings of the divine energies, is to inculcate an understanding of this magnificent work so that we can attempt to at least practice the values enunciated in these great works in our day-to-day life. Something must start somewhere. Right? For those of you who have joined me since 2019 or 2020, we've done so much of work. All the works, all the videos are there available on our website. On our YouTube channel, embodimentsoflove.org. Even these works, when complete, once it's been streamlined through quality and all of that, it will also be made available. And everything is done free of cost. Knowledge is free. But for you to actually get that knowledge and put it in your life, that is a cost for you. You have to spend your time, you have to spend your effort, and you have to spend your initiative. That is the cost. Okay. And if you improve, you go from one stage of spirituality to another stage, you have benefited. I have just played a small role in just pushing you in the right direction. Okay. So week 3, we look at the Kauravas, as I said earlier. And week 4, we look at Karna. Karna is very interesting because, he earned a lot of respect, not when he was alive, but after he died, or just before he died, when it was, discovered who he is and, how he came to be where he is. And in terms of also quelling the arrogance of some people, like Arjuna thought he was the greatest warrior, right? He was the greatest archer, Gandharva. So Krishna said, no, Arjuna, Karna is far more superior to you when it comes to archery. And there was another person who was far more superior than even Karna, right? And he was called Ekalavya. He didn't even have a master. Okay. So maybe when I'm talking about Karna, I'll talk about Ekalavya as well. And how, Dronacharya made sure that he could not, shoot another bow, shoot another arrow again, right? Because that would have completely upset the storyline, So then we talk about Ashwatthama in week 5. So Kauravas week 3, Karna week 4, Ashwatthama week 5. Bhishma, Pitamaha, the great. So a lot of people are confused between Bhishma and Bhima. Okay, Bhishma is the great, son of Ganga and King Shantanu, right? And then we look at Duryodhana. Bhima is just one of the 5 Pandava brothers. Duryodhana, the eldest son of the Kaurava, and Yudhishthira, eldest son of the Pandava. Dhritarashtra, the father of Duryodhana and the ruler of the kingdom of Hastinapur, right? So we look at, can anybody just be king, or must you have specific qualities or specific dharmas that you must have or you must do before you actually become that? Dhritarashtra, okay, the blind king. And then we look at Arjuna. And we look at the great conniving master, Shakuni. And finally, we look at Yudhishthira. I put Yudhishthira last because, being the son of Dharma, the god of Dharma, Dharmadeva. So he always acts dharmically. But sometimes, you will see when I talk about him, even acting dharmically, going more than what you are supposed to do or what you're meant to do, can procure, negative consequences or, things that can happen that you may not have wished for. Okay. And then finally, in week 12, we summarize, we consolidate, and we have a general question and answer session. But every week when I talk to you, when I finish, probably about 50 minutes or 55 minutes, sometimes an hour. It depends, what energies are there helping me to talk. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But at the end of each session, you will have a chance to ask me questions. Okay. So you must listen carefully. If you are taking some notes or making some notes, you can. And if you have a question, pen it down, and then towards the end, you can ask the question either orally or you can type it down in the chat box. So basically, let us start with some timeline or some basic facts. Where did the Mahabharata come from? Of course, there's two ways to look at it, right? The two ways is, one is through the lineage of the Dashavatarams. We had 10 avatars of Lord Vishnu, right? Lord Krishna was the 8th avatar. Rama was the 7th avatar. So through Rama, we got Ramayana. And through Krishna, we have the great Mahabharata. And of course, the essence of Mahabharata, which is the Bhagavad Gita, right? So it was conceived and narrated by the great Maharishi Vedavyasa, because he was also present in that time when the Mahabharata happened. Even before that he was, right? He was one of the Saptarishis. But who wrote it? I mean, the person who's narrating cannot also be writing. So you have to do one or the other. So like the teacher who's instructing, it is the students who are writing the notes when the teacher is talking, for example. So the great Acharya Vedavyasa could not get the right people to keep up with the speed of his narration. So many a times he had to stop narrating the story to get a good scribe, a person who writes while listening to the speech. So he couldn't get anybody. He went to Brahma. Brahma suggested go and see Lord Ganesha, right? And he went to see Ganesha. Ganesha threw a challenge at him. See, Ganesha he's known as the great remover of obstacles and the pinnacle of wisdom, right? Jnana Murti. So he said to Vyasa, I will write the Mahabharata as you narrate on one condition. See, all the time the problem was Vyasa was too fast and the scribes were too slow, so they couldn't keep up and there were lots of problems as a result. Ganesha said, I will write it if you can keep up with my speed of writing. This is jnana in action, right? Vyasa said, okay. And there you go, right? So Ganesha began to write. Whatever scribe, utensil he was using, broke halfway. And without thinking, not a second passed between the thing breaking and him using his tusk. He broke off his tusk and he started to write. That is why you see in all the iconography, all the figurines, all the shapes, all the forms of Lord Ganesha, one tusk is always broken. That symbolizes sacrifice. So what does it mean to you and me? Whenever we look at Ganesha in a temple or in a picture, we should be reminded that he was prepared to sacrifice the greatest asset to an elephant is its tusk. Without thinking, for the benefit of mankind, for the goodness of others, he broke it and he wrote and wrote and wrote until he finished the job. So until today, Ganesha is seen as the god of sacrifice. So for us, when we see, we must also pray that give us the quality of sacrificing that which is near and dear to us, that which is, valuable to us. No, we don't sacrifice things that are not valuable. It has no value, right? So if you look at the Mahabharata, there are more than 100,000 stanzas, 200,000 verses, and almost 2 million words in that one book, right? And there have been many, many people saying it was done in this place, that place, that place. So you go back to 3000 BCE, right up to 200 BCE, there are different timelines. But that is not as important as knowing whether, it actually happened. And of course, it did happen. So you can go to before the Common Era, BCE, right? Up to 3200 or 3000 to 200. That's sort of the timeline. So did it really happen? Yes. In a place called Kurukshetra. So it is called the Great Battle of Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is still there. Today, if you go to Haryana, Haryana in India, you can go to the battlefield. It is just an empty piece of land with a great, big, huge chariot there. The chariot, you always see Mahabharata is represented in a chariot, Krishna, Arjuna, and the wars and all the people around it. Right? That chariot is still there. It is amazing, right? To just go and sit there and just put your hand on the ground. And, by the way, because they said, the hundreds of millions who died, the whole place became blood red. Today, if you go to Kurukshetra in Haryana, you will see that, there's a huge chariot just stands in the vast open land, and the soil, the sand is crimson colored. I mean, it's red. There's no reason why it should be red. Everywhere else, the color is different. But there you go. So if you are really interested, you should go there, right? And you can also go to Madura, and you can see the cows there are different, right? I actually went to one Goshala where they actually are taking milk, from the cows. And the only way they do it is someone comes and plays the flute. You get the best quality milk from those cows there. So Madura cows are a bit different. I mean, these places actually exist. I mean, if you want to go back even further, in Treta Yuga, you see Rama is still there. There is so much of scientific evidence that still exists today, which is continuously being discovered by people in NASA and other space agencies. So let me say something about the battle, since we're talking about the great battle that happened in Mahabharata. Right? Battle is not something new, and it is not exclusive or peculiar to just the great Ithihasas, Ramayana, Mahabharata. If you look at the yugas, there are 4 yugas, right? You had Satya Yuga, golden time. There was complete peace and well-being, right? Because Satya, truth reigned. So the energies were all completely balanced, right? So you listen carefully, balanced energies in Satya Yuga. Then came Treta Yuga. Treta Yuga, quarrels and conflicts began to arise, but with outsiders. So what was balanced in Satya Yuga became slightly or partially imbalanced in Treta Yuga. Outside quarrel. Then in Dwapara Yuga, quarrels, conflicts, and battles is happening within the family. So what was non-existing, then came outside, has now come inside in the Dwapara Yuga. So there's a significant imbalance now. To go back, complete balance, partial imbalance, now significant imbalance in Dwapara Yuga. And Dwapara Yuga is what we are looking at as far as the Mahabharata is concerned. Okay. Then, now the age that we live in is Kali Yuga. Right? So, complete peace, outside quarrel, inside quarrel. Kali Yuga is man is battling with himself, is fighting with his own self. Internal conflicts, mental conflicts, emotional conflicts, physical conflicts. Total imbalance. Balanced energies, Satya Yuga. Partial imbalance, Treta Yuga. Significant imbalance, Dwapara Yuga. Total imbalance, Kali Yuga. So this is the battle. I'm not talking battle does not mean just, people picking up guns or bows and arrows or just fighting with each other. That's a different battle. This is totally different. Then you have to know that people who have written Mahabharata have written it in 18 books. They're called parvas or books, or if you like, chapters for easy understanding, right? 18 chapters or 18 parts, right? 18 angas, if you like, 18 parts. So the 18 parts are, the first one is Adi Parva. It's talking about before it all happened, how it all started. That is the Adi Parva. Then it goes to Sabha Parva. Sabha is like, like in India, you have the Raj Sabha, the Lok Sabha. In UK, you have the, House of Commons, House of Lords. And of course, in Malaysia, you have the Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. So the lower house and the upper house. Similarly, the Sabha Parva talks about the royal court that was based in Hastinapur, which is the central focus as far as the kingdom, the ruling kingdom is concerned. So things happened there, and that led to the third one, which is the Vana Parva or Aranya Parva. Aranya basically means forest. So as a result of them losing the dice game, they were shooed away to the forest for 12 years. And then part of the of punishment was 12 years in the forest, 1 year incognito. That means the 13th year, nobody must be able to see you. You must be invisible. So you must hide so carefully, because if you're seen, then the 12 years will start again. This was a ploy by the great, Duryodhana and Shakuni. So the Vanaparva is talking about the 5 Pandava brothers and Draupadi in seclusion, right? The same thing happened with Rama when he went with Sita to the forest. So it's called the Aranyaka. Then in the 13th year, they went to a kingdom called Virata, King Virata. So this is called Virata Parva, where they were all in disguise because they cannot be seen as themselves. So everybody was in disguise. They went as a coup based on their own strength, right? So the 5 brothers went. Virata Parva is all about what they were doing in the 13th year. Then, of course, they managed to stay invisible, incognito. And what happened after that is, of course, Duryodhana said, no, we found out that you are who you are before the end of the 13th year. So that was a small debate. He wasn't willing to give back the kingdom. And so the declaration of war was made. And then we come to the Udyoga Parva, is where the Pandavas were making efforts to engage in war, and the Kauravas were making efforts to engage in the war. And this story deals with each party's preparations, with Krishna being the central focus. And then comes Bhishma Parva, Bhishmacharya, the great Pitama. Bhishma is known as the grandsire or the great grandfather of the entire Kuru dynasty. He talks about his own, contributions, his own sacrifice, because he was meant to be king, okay? But he gave up that right and took the, oath of Brahmacharya. So he's Brahmacharya, and because of that, he got certain boons granted to him by the Devas, which means he is one person who was allowed to choose the time of death. And that is one reason why we celebrate Makara Sankranti. It's also named Bhishma Jayanti, where he chose. That means, he went from Dakshinanayana to Uttanayana, that sort of thing. Then we have Drona Parva. Drona Parva is the great teacher of the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Dronacharya, the father of Ashwatthama. Talks about how he became the teacher and what his contribution was, and how he was caught between dharma and adharma, right? Even though he knew he should not be doing what he did, he continued to do what he did because of 2 things. One, because he was indebted to the kingdom of Hastinapur for giving him everything. And secondly, he was so attached to his son Ashwatthama that he did a lot of adharmic things in order to protect his son. So that's the lesson there. Then we did Karna Parva, how Karna came into the picture, what is his contribution, what is his great sacrifice. I mean, he's not meant to be where he is, but he was as a result of circumstances where he was, and there's no way out. So he died in that position. 2 things there come out. One is loyalty. If you're loyal to someone who's adharmic, your loyalty does not become dharmic. It is still adharmic, right? And secondly, the concept of, sometimes you don't get what you're supposed to get, even though you're entitled to it. So that's a lesson there. Then you come to something called the Shalya Parva. Shalya Parva is Shakuni, how he meets his death, right? And then as a result, every day, the battle was over 18 days, right? The first day of the battle, we were gifted with the great Bhagavad Gita. On the 18th day of the battle, to end the last day of the battle, we were gifted with Vishnu Sahasranama, okay? So these are the 2 things that come out of the battle. So always there is something good that comes out of something negative, right? So that's the outlook that you should have. Then after the Shalya Parva came Sauptika Parva. Sauptika Parva is where they take revenge. Ashwatthama and 2 other fellows, the last 3 surviving in the Kuru dynasty, they went into the Pandavas' tent and they killed everybody, but they thought it was the Pandavas, but actually it was the children, the sons of the Pandavas. They completely annihilated them. Then comes the Stree Parva, what the women in Mahabharata did. It talks about all the great women in there, from Kunti to Draupadi to, Amba, Ambalika, Ambika, all those people. And then comes the Shanti Parva. Shanti Parva is the reign of peace, the book of peace at the end of the war, peace started to flow, and then how they rebuilt it. Then comes Anushasana Parva. Anushasana Parva is where Anushasan means, when Bhishma lying on the deathbed of arrows, he called Yudhishthira and gave him a discourse of how to rule dharmically. Yeah, because I told you, Yudhishthira is the son of Dharmadeva. And always this happens, right? Even if I take you back to the Ramayana, on the deathbed of Ravana, right? Who went at his feet to learn? Lakshmana went to learn, and he instructed. So the passing of knowledge at the time of death, so that knowledge continues. That is why everything we have in Hinduism is either obtained by Shruti or Smriti, by sight or by sound. Okay. Then we look at Ashwamedika Parva. Ashwa means horses. Ashwamedha. Ashwamedha. If you go to Kashi or Varanasi, there is one particular gut called Dashashwamedha gut. So it's where, the horse sacrifice used to be done. And we talk about Yudhishthira in the Ashwamedika Parva, where he is involved in these rituals and how he, was instructed to do certain things in order to regain the fame and glory of Hastinapur. For example, to mine wealth, to mining. So he also was into mining at that time. Then we come to Ashrama Vashika Parva. Ashrama Vashika Parva is where the golden period of ruling, Yudhishthira, he met Narada, came down, he met Narada, so the growth of prosperity. Then comes the Mausalya Parva. Mausalya Parva leads to the death of Krishna, 36 after the war ended, 37 years after the war ended. So it contains some sorrowful incidents, relating to the Yadava tribe and to Lord Krishna himself. And then we have the last two books called the Mahaprashtanika Parva, which is the beginning of the journey of the 5 Pandava brothers, right? Finding their way to the base of the Himalayan mountains to begin their ascent. That is the Mahaprashtanika Parva. And finally, the Swargarohana Parva is where once they start their journey, one by one started to lose and go ascend up to heaven, right? And how this takes place. So that is the 18 chapters of the entire Mahabharata, right? And it's quite a long track. So that is one reason why I decided I'm not going to go over the story, but using the story to actually talk to you about certain primary characters in the Mahabharata and what they represent. And the actual battle where they use certain weapons, If you use an axe, it's different. It's an ayuda. If you use a spear, that's different. But if you use certain mantras, just by chanting certain mantras, you have engendered a very powerful battle weapon to the battle, and that's called astras. So we were talking about that. Now these are 18 chapters or 18 books. But there is a 19th one which is, there, but not directly related to the Mahabharata. It's called Harivamsa Parva. This relates to the Lord Krishna's lives and times, where none of the other Parvas are talking about it. So those things have been collated and collected and put in something called Harivamsa Parva. But, it's not directly related to the actual Mahabharata. But I just want to draw the connotation between, the Mahabharata, which has 18 Parvas or 18 chapters, and the actual battle that took place, that also happened over 18 days, right? Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. So you see, 18 is a crucial number. 18 means 9. 9 means Brahman number, the divine number. Which is one reason why people say whatever you do, you have to do to the tune of 9. 9 is Brahman, 9 is divine, 9 is universal, 9 is spiritual. That is your belief. At the end of the day, your belief is what you should follow, right? Not what other people tell you simply because you are told about. If you believe, you have faith, then you follow your faith. Okay. So the royal lineage, the actual story is, we can say it can start with the birth of the two brothers, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Okay. So of course, they are born, their father is Vichitravirya, the king of Hastinapur, right? But what happened was he could not, he was more interested in building the kingdom, but he met an untimely death before producing an heir to the throne. But his wife, his wise and resourceful mother Satyavati, had a lot of wisdom, and she, through her contact with some of the sages there, practiced a ritual called Niyoga Tantra, and through that, Satyavati had two sons. One was born, Dhritarashtra, and one was Pandu, right, through Ambika and Ambalika. But there is also a third brother. So Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and the third brother is called Vidura, and he was born to a maid. And he was the most stable, the most wise, and the most balanced among these three. That is why he was always kept aside, because he always says the right things and does the right things. So what happened is, for example, as you know, Pandu or Dhritarashtra, who is to become king. And of course, Pandu said he really wasn't interested. So it was offered to Dhritarashtra, but there is something called Rajaniti. Rajaniti means, the dharma of the royal palace. That said, the eldest son, who's Pandu, is the one who should rise to the throne. But because he was not interested, Bhishma said, then it's over to Dhritarashtra. But Rajaniti also said, you cannot have a king who is blind. Right? Unfortunately, Dhritarashtra was blind, so he was put aside and Pandu was made king. Now, Dhritarashtra was blind physically, right? But I want to talk about mental blindness. Physical blindness is no bar to mental blindness. It doesn't make you mentally blind. Mentally, you can still be aware, conscious, awake. So in Dhritarashtra's case, he was both blind, both physically and also mentally. And emotionally, he was paralyzed because he was all about his, 100 sons. And Gandhari, who was Dhritarashtra's wife, question is, she knew Dhritarashtra was blind, yet she was happy to marry him. She was not blind. But because she wanted to experience what he was experiencing, she blindfolded herself so that she was never able to be distinguished from someone who has sight or who can see, compared to a husband who's blind. So that is a great sacrifice, unwavering devotion, if you like, on the part of Gandhari. Selflessness, right? I mean, she demonstrated by blindfolding herself, solidarity with the husband, symbolizing, a shared wisdom and a shared love for the kingdom. My question is, in today's day and time, in this Kali Yuga, would this kind of sacrifice happen? So you see, there is a lesson to be learned from Gandhari. There is a lesson to be learned from Dhritarashtra, right? Don't just listen to the story and then be entertained for a moment or two. Your question should be, what can I extract from this story and how can I use that to live my life properly, right? So Dhritarashtra was born blind as a result of Rajaniti. Blind people, a blind eye cannot run the kingdom. Thus, the kingdom went to Pandu. Pandu, during his brief reign, where there was prosperity, there was growth, but still he always knew that, he didn't want it. He had to do it. Dhritarashtra wanted, but he could not do it. So he asked permission to put Dhritarashtra temporary while he went away to the forest, for some period to meditate and whatnot. Because he always knew, Dhritarashtra was always conniving, was always trying to do things behind the back from childhood. Again, here, what is relevant is, if you harbor ill feelings from childhood, right, it is deep down inside you, It will never go away. At some point, it will make you think and do things in order to realize that deep desire that you've planted. So always plant the right things in your mind and in your thinking, right? The lesson is complexities of fate. Dhritarashtra was always in a state of complex. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I follow my duty? Do I follow my emotions? His human condition was pathetic. Despite his physical impairment, he became king, he ruled, but he was very, very partial towards the Kauravas, his own sons, compared to the Pandavas, because Yudhishthira was supposed to take over after Pandu, but no, he came into the picture. And of course, now Duryodhana is saying, I am the eldest son of my father who is the king, so I should reign. So that's why I said to you earlier, sometimes you may be entitled to something, but you may not get it at that time. Yudhishthira still became king after that big war and all of that. Then he was made king of Hastinapur. So you may get it at a longer time, at a later time, rather than now. But what does Dhritarashtra teach us? What is the lesson that we can learn from Dhritarashtra? It's a cautionary tale. It's caution. It's telling us, hey, be careful, be cautious. You have to learn how to forgive. But Dhritarashtra never forgave. Okay, you have to learn how to be showing empathy, because like Dhritarashtra, otherwise, if you choose to do something, your actions will have far-reaching consequences based on your choice. Right? Pure attachment. So move away from attachment. Satsangatvam, nitsangatve. Because only if you go nitsanga can you go nirmohatva, without desires. Okay. So it was all about greed at the end of the day. Whose greed? One person's greed, one person's attachment. Dhritarashtra's attachment, Duryodhana's greed, because he wanted to rule the kingdom. He said, there is no way I'm going to let Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira was no stranger. It was his, cousin. Both fathers were brothers. Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana's father. Pandu, Yudhishthira's father. They were both brothers. So why did that greed come? So what I'm saying is, sometimes the problem does not come from outside. The problem comes from within your family. And that is Mahabharata. Every single problem was within the family. Right? Duryodhana was not giving up. So the quality of giving up something, as we say in spirituality, let go and let God. As long as you take control and you want to do, God will stand aside and watch. But once you completely sacrifice and leave it to God, then God will take over. It's your choice. Whatever choice you make, consciously or unconsciously, you have to face the consequences. So that's something for you to learn as well. Okay. Pandu, in this sense, was relatively evolved in his thinking. So when he went to the forest, he spent a long time and he met his death there, to cut a long story short, right? He died there. And then the question became, who becomes king, right? Pandu dies, who's to become king? Of course, if you look at the lineage, the next in line would be Yudhishthira, not according to Duryodhana, right? The present ruler who is, who was in place. So he was not the actual king. He was a king in, interim, Duryodhana said, no, Dhritarashtra is the current king, right? So I'm the eldest son of him, so I should be king. Now, the question for us, how does that relate to us today, right? Adharma and dharma, action-based consequences, right? You can never escape from the consequences of your actions. So always choose to do the right thing, right? So here again, I want to emphasize the quality of letting go. Okay, it is mine, I'm entitled to, but somebody is fighting so hard against it. Do I fight against him, or do I say, okay, take it, whatever I'm supposed to get, let the law of nature work? Let go, let God. But when you let go, you must let go completely, not just let go a little bit and then try to take over and do something to realize. Okay. So the quality here, the Rajanidhi said, someone who's blind cannot be king. So there was no way, even though he was king in place, when Pandu died, there was no way he could still be king. So the next in line would have been Pandu's eldest son, isn't it? If you look at the lineage, the proper order. But Duryodhana said no. So what is the lesson for us here? Stubbornness. the quality of stubbornness. Mada, mamada, matsaryaha. What happens? That's it. That is why Lord Shiva is a bull. The bull is the, represents stubbornness. But because the bull controlled its stubbornness, Lord Shiva said, I will take you as my vehicle. So when we look at Shiva and Nandi, we should say, give me, Shiva, the quality of dumbing my stubbornness. That is what we should pray. But no, we will go to temple and we will whisper something in Nandi's ears. We should move away from ritualistic practices and go into spiritualistic practices. Then you will see things happening. But you keep doing the same thing, you will experience the same result, right? So move away from that. Duryodhana refused to give up his right to the kingdom when he didn't have the dharmic right to it. So he became the ruler, right? Now, the Pandavas, on the other hand, let me say something about the Pandavas, right? 5 brothers, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva, right? These 5 brothers, they are called the Pancha Pandavas. They also represent the Pancha Bhutas. So, for example, if you take Yudhishthira, right? Yudhishthira represents earth or Prithvi. If you take Bhima, he represents water or Jalam, right? If you take Arjuna, he represents fire or Agni. If you take Nakula, he represents air or Vayu. And if you take Sahadeva, he represents space or Akasha. And they are not children fathered by men. They are children fathered by Devas. For example, Yudhishthira was the son of Dharmadeva, right? Bhima, as you know, the brother of Hanuman, father is Vayu Deva. Arjuna, Indra Deva, right? Nakula, Ashwini twins. Nakula and Sahadeva, Ashwini twins. So Kunti was given with a gift of reciting a mantra. So she recited a mantra to Dharmadeva, and Yudhishthira was born. She recited a mantra to Vayudeva. Like that, every child was procured as a result of mantras. Mantras are very, very powerful, right? And I've given one session some time ago on Yantra, Mantra, Tantra. So if you want, you can go to the YouTube channel and go through that. So they were all created for a specific reason, right? So what is the significance of this? Every human being, every person born has got the Panchabhuta elements in them. Everybody is made of earth, water, fire, air, and space. This body is made of that. 70% of your body is water. What do you need? The fire of digestion in you. There's a fire in you, the air that you breathe, prana, space, and of course, earth, prithvi, the very energy, the very skin, and all of that is related. So you are also connected to the Panchabhutas. That is why there is a practice when you go into holy places, you don't wear shoes so that your feet touches the ground and can absorb the relevant energies. So when you sit erect, your bottom is on the ground, so your chakras are aligned, so you can develop your chakra energies, right? This is the diverse quality of each of the Pandava, but collectively, they are the Panchabhuta. So can you imagine how strong they are, even though they're just only 5, compared to the 100 brothers who were completely diverse with no specific qualities or characteristics. These guys are powerful. Concept of Panchabhutas is deeply rooted in Hindu philosophy, right? Because everything we do comes under these 5 elements, right? So to cut a long story short, Dhritarashtra called Duryodhana, the Pandavas were called and said, because we are going to rule, we'll give you a small part where you all can go and start your own kingdom or, whatever country or whatever you call it. So they chose a barren desert called Indraprastha. And they said, okay, this is for you all. Okay. Pandavas could have fought at that time. This is before the battle. Could have fought at that time. But no, they said, Yudhishthira said, it's okay, whatever is given to us, let us take and make something out of it. And they worked very hard, from a barren desert, they made it so lustrous and, so successful. So the lesson there is the quality of hard work and faith, And Duryodhana again became jealous. Wow, we give them, even though we give them a desert, they have turned it, into such a beautiful green grass. that is so, abundantly prosperous. So again, his jealousy grew. So his idea now, he wanted to kill them, right? You see, the jealousy here grew to such an extent where it can even be fatal. So he plotted to kill them, to do this, do that. He built the wax palace. You would have read the story or you would have seen the story. He invited the Pandavas there, and then he wanted to set it on fire. But Vidura, the wise brother, heard about it. He warned the Pandavas, and they escaped from that. And still, Duryodhana said, I've tried so many things, but I can't get rid of this fellows. But he never gave up in his jealousy, right? Now, the second plan, he consulted his great, evil, and conniving uncle Shakuni, that is Gandhari's brother, right? The crown prince of Gandhara. Gandhara is what we know now today as Afghanistan. Okay, if you track the historical history, you will see that previously it was called Gandhara, then Ghanistan, then Afghanistan. So like that it became. Shakuni had a great power to meddle with dice. The dice, you roll the dice and you put. So he plotted a plan. He said, you invite them for a game with yourself. Then when they actually come, you tell them that you are not feeling very well and tell I will play. And I will then make sure that they lose. So when Duryodhana invited Yudhishthira, he went. He thought, okay, it's a friendly thing, and he thought it will improve relations. And the best part is he gave Duryodhana the benefit of the doubt, which is maybe Duryodhana is changing for the better. So let's go and give him a chance. The character, a snake will always be a snake and will die as a snake. So will a leopard, so will a monkey, so will everything. So whatever we are born as, we have certain inherent characteristics that will stay with us until the day we go. Right? So Yudhishthira was behaving dharmically, and of course Duryodhana was behaving adharmically. So what you need to see is the flow of consequences from dharmic actions and the flow of consequences from adharmic actions. Right? The thing is, what is surprising is, you can be nice, but even in being nice, you have to exercise something called vivekam, that is discrimination. Without discrimination, there is no way you can be wisdom, or you can be wise, or you can exercise wisdom, or you can become intelligent. Okay. So also, as the king of Indraprastha, another king is inviting him. He thought it's only dharmic to go and respect and honor the invitation. But when he went there, of course, Duryodhana said, I am not feeling up to it to play, but my uncle Shakuni Mama will play on my behalf. At that point, Yudhishthira could have said, no, you call me to play with me. I'm not going to play with anywhere else. I'll come back when you are feeling better. Again, Yudhishthira wanted to be nice. Again, he wanted to be nice. Again, he wanted to be nice in so many different places. So what is the lesson for us here? You need to be assertive when you need to be assertive. Not, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Then you will suffer the consequences like the Pandava brothers. Right? The other brothers never questioned Yudhishthira because he was the eldest brother and his word was honor. Right? So that is another lesson. And then, of course, the story, he started to lose everything. Right? And here is where a balanced mind is important. Right? A balance of mind will tell you when to stop. But he did not know when to stop because he thought he had a chance to win back. But he had no chance to win because the guy who was playing was Shakuni, the greatest conjurer of Maya. He could, if the dice is going to become 6, he could use his Siddhic powers to make it 4 or 2 or 3. So how can you win like that? When you are playing fair and the other party is playing unfair, how can you win? Right? So at the end of it, he lost everything. He also lost Draupadi. That's when Duryodhana said to Dushasan, his younger brother, go and bring Draupadi, because she insulted them many times before that. Now, of course, then he said, disrobe her. So Dushasan was trying to pull her sari, that part of the story. Here, I want to look at Draupadi's state of mind in 3 ways. Okay. So first, she connected to her emotional self, her heart. And she asked, Dronacharya, you are here. Bhishmacharya, you are here. Don't you all know what is honor? Don't you all know what is ethics? Don't you all know what is dharma? People look up to you as leaders. Why are you allowing them to do this? Nobody said anything. See? And dharma does not speak, adharma rules. Right? Nobody. Vidura said something because, Vidura is wise and fair, but nobody listened to him. He was just ignored. Then Draupadi went to the second, where she connected with her cognitive intelligent self. The first one was emotional. She emotionally pleaded with the rest of the people in the court. No luck. Then she connected to her cognitive intelligent self. She said, who did Yudhishthira lose first? Himself or me? Because, again, a very valid point, right? So you see the difference between emotional thinking and intelligent thinking here. She said, if he had lost himself, then he had no power to sell me because he was not a king no more. So he can't. It's a valid argument. Nobody listened to her. It was pushed aside. Then finally, she went to her spiritual side, emotional, intelligence, spiritual side. And she went to Krishna. She said, Krishna, As she said Krishna, the cloth began to grow and grow and grow and grow. And finally, she realized that she had to let go and let God. And she did. And, the cloth began to grow and grow until Dushasan became so fatigued, he collapsed. And then they would just let go, right? But I just want to bring a point here, right? When later that evening, when Lord Krishna went to see Draupadi, she asked him, why you took so long to come? I called you. He said, Draupadi, can I remind you how you called me? I called you Vrindavanavasa. I said, correct. So because you put me in Vrindavan, I had to go to Vrindavan and come from there. Then halfway I was coming, what did you say? You say Madhura Bhasha. I have to go back to Madhura and come. Don't give me a postcode. You should have just say Hridayattin Vasa. Instantaneously I would have come. So don't blame me if I was a bit delayed in coming. That's because you gave me a postcode. So the lesson here is, do not give God a postcode, right? If I ask you, where is Lord Muruga, you will say Palani. No, if he doesn't reside in your heart, then no point going to Palani, right? Where is Lord Narayana? You'll say, oh, Tirupati. No, if it doesn't reside in your heart, Hridayattin Vasa. No point going to Tirupati. So put God in your heart and put the intelligence of spirituality in your mind, you'll be fine. Now, if you give them postcodes here, there, everywhere, then there is a problem. Okay. So this is the story until, it comes to the war. And the important lesson for us is the distinction between dharma and adharma, dharmic action and adharmic actions, and what they respectively produce. And that's what you need to learn. But what are some of the other lessons that, the Mahabharata has given us? One thing is, as I said to you, you can be nice, but not overly nice like Yudhishthira. You need to stand up and you need to question unfairness. You need to be assertive, right? Bhishma, sometimes you do certain acts of undertaking, certain sankalpa, and as a result of that continuing sankalpa, you do some things wrong, and you have to face the results of that. So you need to maintain perspective. For example, Bhishma, he said, my job is to protect the king. Whoever is the king, I will protect him. Even if the king is doing adharmic, I have to stand by the king. I am not doing the adharmic thing. The king is doing it. My job is to protect. But by doing that, he was also misguided. Almost everybody in Mahabharata was misguided at some point. And I'll be talking about this as we progress into the course in weeks, 3 to 9, 3 to 10. The importance is maintaining perspective. The only one who was not misguided and was always doing the right thing throughout the whole story was Lord Krishna, right? Because it's not that he didn't have challenges. Don't get me wrong. It is because he never lost perspective during those challenges. So what is the lesson for us? We can face problems. We can face issues. We can face conflicts, but we need to maintain perspective. That is the lesson, right? Then, of course, what they did during the war, what each party did. Of course, they say at the end of the day, truth will always win. Yato satyam tato Krishna tato jayam. Wherever there is truth and dharmic actions, that the Rig Veda says, satyam vada dharmam chara. You always speak the truth and do the right thing. If you speak the truth and do the right thing, Krishna is there. And wherever Krishna is present, there is only victory. Yato Krishna tato jayam. And then that's part of the, opening prayer that I have. The Mahabharata also teaches us that we must be hostile from 5 causes. 5 causes of problems even today, 2025. That means over a period of time, not just during Ramayana, not just during Mahabharata, throughout the period. Today's wars, as you see, is because of one of these, right? What are the 5 things? One is women, okay? Fighting over ownership, arguments, those sort of things. The other is land. People fight over land. People fight over women. People fight over harsh words. Oh, you shouldn't have said that to me now. That sort of thing. Natural incompatibility. I am so and so, you are so and so. That can lead to war. And injury, in terms of injury to mental energy, injury to emotional energy, injury to physical energy. So land and property is one of the main things they were fighting over in Mahabharata. Today also, countries are fighting over land, isn't it? You see the war in Russia and Ukraine, the war in, all kinds of things are happening. So you need to look at all of this, not just getting the story of Mahabharata. You need to look at all of this in order for you to realize that what we are actually doing is not just following the story, but taking the lessons of the story and then obviously, making sure that we are learning and practicing the actual lessons, the actual values that have been taught through this. So I will end there and say, Anyada sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mamaha tasmat karunyabhavena raksha raksha maheshwarah. Hari Om Tat Sat. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu.